السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه وشكر له على توفيقه وامتنانه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه، وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد، لكل شيء إذا تم نقصانه فلا يغر بطيب العيش إنسان، هي الأمور كما شهدتها دول، من سره الزمان سأته أزمان. أيها الأحبة, we are continuing our lecture series regarding the history of the Muslims of Andalus. We are currently looking at the period where we ended up losing this great civilization, a civilization like no other that has been witnessed on this earth, the civilization of the Muslims in Andalus. Ikhwani fillah, in the previous lecture we mentioned that the 7th century of Islamic history was probably the most difficult, the worst century for the Muslims in its entire history. Because if there was a century whereby Islam would have ended, it would have been this century. This is a century, ikhwani fillah, that Genghis Khan appeared from the year 604 of the Hijri calendar until the fall of Baghdad under his grandson in the year 656 of the Hijri calendar. There was no century, ikhwani fillah, where Muslims were massacred and many of those lost their lives like this century of the 7th century. And the same problem, ikhwani fillah, was occurring in Andalus. We mentioned last night, ikhwani fillah, that in the year 633 of the Hijri calendar, we lost the city, the capital city of the Muslims, the city of Cordoba, the city that had the largest mosque in the entire world, the city of 3,000 mosques, the city of ulama, the city of fuqaha, the city of the greatest library that was one of the greatest library in the entire world. We lost this city of Cordoba in the year 633 of the Hijri calendar. Ikhwani fillah, there are two famous scholars in Islamic history that are known as Imam al-Qurtubi. The best tafsir after the tafsir of Ibn Jarir al-Tabari is the tafsir of Imam al-Qurtubi. And you have another Imam also, Qurtubi, is called Abu al-Abbas al-Qurtubi. He has a commentary on Sahih Muslim. He lived within this period that Qurtuba fell. Qurtuba fell in the year 633. He himself, he died in the year 656 of the Hijri calendar. Ikhwani fillah, when someone talks about their hometown, or their hometown is taken away from them, you expect them to talk about it with love, with you're feeling some loneliness that you're not having that place. But you find this Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, who passed away in the year 656 of the Hijri calendar, Abu al-Abbas Ahmad al-Qurtubi, he does not speak about Qurtuba at all in his Sahih Muslim. Sahih Muslim is a big book, and the Sharh is even bigger. He does not speak about it at all. He was asked by one of the scholars, why don't you mention about Qurtuba? Why don't you mention about this city? He says that place, the ma'asiyah and the fawahish and zina became so prevalent in society that it was definitely going to collapse. When zina appears in a society, that society will definitely be destroyed. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says in an authentic hadith, he says, وَيْلُ لِلْعَرَبِ مِنْ شَرٍّ قَدْ اقْتَرَبْ. Woe upon the Arabs, and evil has appeared on this day. The wall of the Ya'juj or Ma'juj has been opened this much. The mother of the believers, radiallahu anha, she asks, Ya Rasulullah, أَنَهْلِكُ وَفِينَا الصَّالِحُونَ. Are we going to be destroyed and amongst us are righteous people? قال عليه الصلاة والسلام نعم إذا كثر الخبث. Yes, you shall be destroyed if there is a lot of filth, if there is a lot of evil in society. Ikhwani fillah, the society of Andalus became a society where evil was prevalent, and more so because of the dunya and the wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given to them. So we lost the city of Qurtuba in the year 633 of the Hijri calendar. The year 636 we lost Valencia. The year 643 we lost Jayan. And the only two areas that was left in the Andalus that was conquered by Tariq ibn Ziyad and Musa ibn Nusayr, the only two areas that was left was Granada and Sevilla. Sevilla and Granada. We mentioned that these names must be common to many of you, because I know many of you are football fans. So if you look at the La Liga, you'll see many of these names in the La Liga. So the only two areas that was left was Sevilla, Ishbilia, and Granada. These are the only two areas left in the year 643 of the Hijri calendar. Ibn Ahmar is the leader of Granada. Ibn Ahmar, his name is Muhammad Ibn Yusuf Ibn Nasr Ibn Ahmar. He's the leader of this area. This man, his lineage goes back to the Sahabi Sa'd ibn Ubadah al-Khazraji, one of the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He comes from that family line. This is Muhammad the First. It's called Muhammad the First. Ikhwani fillah, in the year 643 of the Hijri calendar, he has a meeting with the king of Castile, Alfonso VI. So he signs an agreement with Alfonso VI, the king of Castile. He says, condition number one, you Muslims have to pay every year 150,000 gold coins. You have to pay 150,000 dinar. He agrees. Number two, you have to surrender to us all the fortresses to the west of Granada. He agrees. He says, number three, I will send someone to assist you to rule in Granada. One of the Christian leaders I'll send to Granada to assist you in leading. He agrees. Condition number four, you shall rule Granada by the name of the king of Castile. You just one of my servants. He agrees. And condition number five, which was the most dangerous condition, ikhwani fillah, if Castile requires your assistance in any war it fights, you as the Muslims of Granada, it is obligatory upon you to assist me as the king of Castile to fight whichever enemy I wish to fight. So these are the five conditions. He agreed with the king of Castile in the year 643 of the Hijri calendar. Ikhwani fillah, this fifth condition, whereby he is supposed to support the army of Castile, is a very dangerous condition. For the very first person, or the very first area attacked, was the land of the Muslims in Ishbilia. Ishbilia is 10% of the land of Andalus, and Granada is 15%. So the first area the king of Castile wishes to attack is the state of Sevilla. So he tells this Muslim, Ibn Ahmar, you have to support me based on the agreement you have signed to crush Sevilla, to conquer Sevilla. So the armies come out, Ibn Ahmar and the Muslim armies, the betrayers, they come out of Granada. And they go, they besiege Sevilla. They besiege their own fellow Muslim brothers, so to assist the Nasara king, King Castile. They besiege the Muslims for 1 year and 5 months. 17 good months. The Muslims of Sevilla are crying out to be assisted. There's no food, there's no water, they have no resources, their lives are under threat. No one is assisting them. 17 months. Then came the 27th of Ramadan, the year 646. The 27th of Ramadan, the year 646, they managed to conquer Sevilla. And the policy with regards to the Spaniards was only two. You had only two options, all Muslims. Option number one, we kill you, all Muslims. Option number two, you leave the land that you're staying in. So 400,000 Muslims, they had to leave the city of Sevilla. This is the second largest city of the Muslims in Spain, in Andalus. This city that had the Grand Mosque of Sevilla, built by Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur al-Muwahidi, that had the biggest minara, they had to leave the city. And all its wealth and its glory and its history, they had to leave it. So they leave it, and the first thing the king of Castile does when he enters it, he goes to the mosque of Sevilla, the Grand Mosque, and he puts the silver cross on it. It is now a cathedral from that date on till today. It has never gone back to the fold of the Muslims, and if you study it, you find it was the betrayal of that deed of Granada, Ibn Ahmar, who assisted the king of Castile to capture it. So all those Muslims are expelled. Some of them go to Morocco, North Africa. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist them in the trial they're getting right now with the earthquake. Say Amin. And the rest go to Granada. This is the year 746 of the Hijri calendar. So he continues agreements with the king of Castile, this Ibn Ahmar, Muhammad Ibn Yusuf Ibn Nasr Ibn Ahmar, Muhammad the First. But these people don't keep their word, as we mentioned so many times. أو كلما عاهدوا عهدا نبذه فريق منهم بل أكثرهم لا يؤمنون. They don't keep their word ever. The people of Europe, especially the non-Muslims, whatever agreement you sign with them, they won't. So every time they keep attacking a village of the Muslims, they take it over, a town of the Muslims. Muhammad says, we have an agreement, can't do anything about it. The year 6, I'm losing dates today, mashallah. The year 671 of the Hijri calendar reaches. And Castile is fed up now with the Muslims. It wants to take over the entire of Granada. So he prepares an army. The leader of Castile at the time is called Alfonso X. Ikhwani fillah, it was not easy for Granada to be captured by the Nasara. Why? Because all the Muslims that were expelled from Valencia, from Barcelona, from any city, from Sevilla, from Cordoba, from Jayan, all these areas, they were landing in Granada. So the population of Granada was very high. Also, they had many fortresses. Granada is also to the south, near Morocco. You just have to cross the Mediterranean, which is not very far. 13 kilometers, you're in Granada. So Granada was not an easy place to conquer for the kingdom of Castile. But he decided, Alfonso X, in the year 671 of the Hijri calendar, that is going to take over Granada. So the Ibn Ahmar has thought, I have done everything required. I have been a servant to this man. I have been like a slave to this man. I have sought assistance from him. I have lowered myself to him. What do I do now? So he thinks, then he says, let me go back now to my Muslim brothers in North Africa, in Morocco, and seek their assistance. Ikhwani fillah, the Dawla al-Muwahidun that we mentioned previously had fallen in the year 668 of the Hijri calendar. North Africa and West Africa was led, or North Africa was led by a new tribe, the tribe of Banu Marine. And one of the great leaders of Islamic history at the time, Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur al-Marini. Previously we mentioned Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur al-Muwahidi. This one is Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur al-Marini, one of the great leaders. The scholars, they say about this man, كَانَ صَوَّامًا قَوَامًا. He used to fast his days and perform qiyamul layl at night. كَثِيرُ الذِّكْر. Every time you find him remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مُتَوَاضِعًا. He used to be humble to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. شُجَاعًا مِقْدَامًا. He was very brave. مُكْرِمًا لِلسُّلَحَاء. He used to be generous to the righteous people. Jawadan Kariman. They had very many attributes. And from the attributes they say about this man, Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Marini, Lam tuhzam lahu raya. He has never lost a battle he has fought. In his entire life, he has never lost a single battle he has fought. And there are very few people, ikhwani fillah, in Islamic history who have never lost battles. Including the first is Khalid ibn Walid, Sayfullah al-Maslul. The sword of Allah cannot lose a battle. He's the sword of Allah Azza wa Jal. You have Muhammad ibn Abi Amir, we mentioned previously in the lectures of Andalus. We're going to speak about Zahir Berbers when we're talking about the Tatar and also this man. They are amongst very few Muslim generals who never lost a battle. So they seek the help. The people of Andalus, Granada, they seek the help of this righteous Muslim leader to assist them. So he lands, ikhwani fillah, he prepares an army and he lands in Andalus in the year 674 of the Hijri calendar. 674 of the Hijri calendar. What army has he brought to assist the Muslims? He has only brought an army of 5,000 soldiers. Only 5,000 soldiers, with him taking charge and lead of this army. But it's an army, ikhwani fillah, that has iman. It has taqwa. It has a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such an army is not easy to defeat. An army of Muslims, even if you're one Muslim, you can defeat. They used to say about Zubayr ibn Amr, Zubayr ibn Awam, Al-Qaqa ibn Amr. Some of the Sahaba and the Tabi'in, they say this man is worth 1,000 people. He's able to fight 1,000 people according to Islamic history. Some people are that brave, the Iman and their relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the year 674 of the Hijri calendar, 5,000 from the Bani Marine, they come from Morocco, they cross into Andalus, to Granada. 5,000 from the army of Ibn Ahmar joins him. Sorry, I forgot to mention that the first Ibn Ahmar had passed away in the year 671 of the Hijri calendar. His son, who is also called Muhammad, they all call Muhammad. From now on, every leader of Spain is called Muhammad. So it's Muhammad, the son of Muhammad Ibn Ahmar, the second Muhammad, also known as Al-Faqih, the jurist or the scholar of fiqh. He was a scholar of fiqh, according to them, but he's not a good person. So he's the leader of the Muslim. He comes 5,000 from the people of Andalus and 5,000 from the people of Maghrib or from Morocco. They go to a place near Cordoba to meet the king of Castile, who surprises them with an army of 90,000 soldiers. So 90,000 soldiers led by a man called Dononio ibn de la Vera or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce the name. It's a Spanish name. Dononio ibn la Vera or de la Vera. They meet in the Battle of Dononio in the year 674 of the Hijri calendar. 10,000 Muslims versus 90,000. So the Muslims are sure that this is a time that we're going to leave this world. So the leader, Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Marini, gives a khutbah to them. He says, أَلَا إِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ تَحْتَ ظِلَالِ السُّيُوفِ. Know that Jannah is under the shade of swords. Then he mentions to them the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَيَقْتُلُونَ وَيُقْتَلُونَ وَعْدًا عَلَيْهِ حَقًّا فِي التَّوْرَاةِ وَالْإِنْجِيلِ وَالْقُرْآنِ. Says to them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ready to buy from you your lives and your property, and He gives you in as payment Jannah. Why? Because you fight fi sabilillah. So the people, they say goodbye to each other, the Muslims hug each other, they cry. They know that this is a place they're going to leave this world and they're going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a day that most likely they're going to earn the attribute or the honor or the status of martyrdom. So they fight fillah in a great battle, and the Muslims fillah with a small number, كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة. Small numbers can sometimes defeat large numbers, and they were able to defeat the army of Dononio, and they killed Dononio, the leader of Castile at the time, and 6,000 of the enemies lost their lives, 8,000 were captured. This was the year 674 of the Hijri calendar. The Imam, the righteous leader of the Muslims, he leaves everything from the war booty to the people of Andalus, and he sets out and he conquers Sevilla. He conquers that city that was taken from us, Sevilla, and he makes them to pay jizya, to pay a tax that is due upon non-Muslims. And Ibn Ahmar goes and conquers Jayyan, and also they pay jizya. A period of glory, for this was the very first victory the Muslims had since the Battle of Arak in the year 591 of the Hijri calendar. They had not experienced this sweetness of victory for almost 80 years plus. This was the very first time they had this victory. So these are the events of the year 674 of the Hijri calendar. He signs a peace agreement to the king of Castile. The king of Castile accepts the conditions. 3 years later, he breaks the conditions. As usual, they always break their word. They find an opportunity that they can take advantage of. He breaks his word, and he starts attacking the Muslims and spreading fasad upon the earth. Once again, this righteous leader comes from North Africa to defend his fellow brothers in the year 677 of the Hijri calendar, and he defeats them again, and he makes sure that he goes as far as Cordoba, the capital city that was taken from us, and it was taken by the Nasara, and he makes sure that they start paying jizya, just like their brothers in Sevilla and just like their brothers in Jayyan. This was the events of the year 677 of the Hijri calendar. Also in this year, Granada is divided into 3 main areas. The only area of Spain that was left for the Muslims is Granada. This Granada is divided into 3 areas. The area of Granada, a place called Granada, or town, Malqa and Almeria. It's divided into these 3 areas. The leader of Almeria at the time, he dies, and his son becomes the new leader of the Muslims. The son, does something amazing. He goes to Al-Marini, Abu Yusuf Yaqub Al-Marini, and says to him, you are more worthy of leadership than I. Take over this area and rule the Muslims. So he becomes the new leader of this area of Almeria. Only Malqa and Granada is left by Ibn Ahmar al-Faqih. Ibn Ahmar al-Faqih, is a faqih, he's a person who studied the deen. He studied history. He sits down, and he starts getting a lot of waswas. He says, Inna fi tarikh al-ibra. History is a lesson that we are going to learn. Al-Mu'tamid ala Allah ibn Abbad, we mentioned in the previous lectures, he called Yusuf ibn Tashafin to assist them in Andalus, and Yusuf ibn Tashafin ended up taking up the entire Andalus because of the fatwa of the scholars. So he said that this man, Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Marini, is going to take over my entire kingdom. So he does something, betrayal. He goes to his enemies, the kingdom of Castile. He goes to the Nasara king Alfonso X, and he forms an agreement with him. He allies himself with the king of Castile to attack the Muslims, to fight this man Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Marini, and to take over the area, the island of Tarif. The island of Tarif is between Morocco and Andalus. He betrays the Muslims. Why? Because he's afraid of his seat. He's afraid of the throne. He does not care about the ummah of the Muslims. As long as he lives, even if it's a life of humiliation, as long as he is that power and that glory, he does not care. He signed this agreement. and they go Fillah to take over at Tarif, this island of Tarif, from Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Marini. But this man, Fillah, has never lost a single battle in his entire life. He does not know the humiliation of defeat. He does not know the agony of defeat. He defeats them thoroughly. The king of Castile and his army ran away, and they leave Ibn Ahmar in the battlefield. Ibn Ahmar is by himself in the battlefield. No one with him. He comes and apologizes and makes excuses and says, I'm your brother in deen, I'm your elder, blah, blah, blah. He's left alone. He forgives him. Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Marini, he forgives him because he has a clean heart. He forgives him and he returns him back to his seat. He goes back to North Africa. The year 684 of the Hijri calendar comes again. Once again, they break the agreement, the king of Castile, and they start attacking lands of the Muslims. Once again, our hero Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Marini comes from Morocco again. He defeats them thoroughly and he signs agreement with them. This is one of the most interesting agreements that he signed. He says, I do not want money from you. I do not want land from you. The only thing that I want as the leader of the Muslims of Morocco, all the Muslim books that are left in Cordoba, in Sevilla, in Tulaytila, in Valencia, in Barcelona, all these areas used to be Muslims. They left their books and their libraries. Give me all those books. That's the only condition. So the Nasara went to all these towns, they looked for the books that they had not burnt, they had not destroyed, and they bring to this leader, and he takes them to North Africa, and he keeps them in the Grand Library of Al-Fas in Morocco. Till this day, the books that were saved in Morocco, the great books of the scholars of Andalus, they were saved by this man, Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Marini. Look at the wisdom and the foresight he had to preserve this heritage, to preserve these literary works of our scholars in Andalus. The year 685 of the Hijri calendar, he passes away, rahimahullah. This great leader, Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur al-Marini, he passed away in the year 685 of the Hijri calendar. Once again, al-Faqih ibn Ahmar, Muhammad ibn Ahmar, he starts thinking, what do I do? And he starts plotting again, and he starts planning again. This time he goes to the king of Castile again, Alfonso X or someone else, and he signs an agreement with them. I need that island of Tarif. I need to take that island for myself because I'm afraid this new leader, Yusuf ibn Mansur, will also come and take my Granada from me. So he signs an agreement with the king of Castile that if they go, they fight in Tarif, they take it over, and it's handed over to him. So they go, they besiege it for days, for weeks, attacking Muslims, killing fellow Muslims, and he successfully, he manages to conquer Tarif, this island. But the Nasara, they break their word. As usual, they always break their word. They say to him, we'll look after this area for you. You go back to Granada, don't worry about it. But you had an agreement. We are friends. We signed an agreement. We lost blood here. We have taken this island for ourselves. And they break the agreement. They refuse completely to give this island. This island is one risky issue that happened to us. Why? Because it's in the middle of Morocco and Spain. If this island is taken over, there is no connection between Morocco anymore and Spain. The connection Muslims had to Spain, all the Spain, they are getting assistance from Morocco for the last 300, 400 years. All this is cut off. There's no way now. Why? Because the Isle of Tarif has been taken from them because of the betrayal of this man, Ibn Ahmar. So, the situation of Andalus continues in that state. The Muslims are in a state of humiliation. They're paying jizya, but they're still engrossed in their dunya. They're still busy with music, busy with girlfriends and zina, and some of them ma'asi spreading in society. Then the year 701, this betrayer, Ibn Ahmar, I think the whole family of betrayers. The father was a betrayer. He signed that agreement in the year 643. He signed as a betrayer. He signed with the king of Castile so many agreements. He dies in the year 701. And the third leader comes Muhammad III. Muhammad, the son of Muhammad ibn Yusuf ibn Nasr ibn Ahmar, becomes the leader in the year 701 of the Hijri calendar. He is called Al-A'mash. He has a defect in the eye. There's a scholar in Islamic history, also one of the greats of Islamic history. If Al-A'mash is mentioned, it's always the scholar who's called Sulaiman ibn Mihran Al-A'mash, one of the scholars of hadith. I think he passed away, if I'm not wrong, in the year 134 of the Hijri calendar. One of the scholars who was the Shaykh to Sufyan al-Thawri and many others. But this man is also called Al-A'mash, the new leader, Muhammad ibn Ahmar. He's the new leader in the year 701. He has a minister who's very evil. And this is one of the mistakes people as leaders do. Don't choose an evil minister that will lead to your destruction. This minister is called, I believe is called Abu Abdullah ibn Hakim. It's called Abu Abdullah ibn Hakim. Ibn Hakim means the wise one. But this was not a wise man. The very first thing he does, he calls the people to fight a battle, to fight a war. To fight a war against who? He attacks Morocco and takes over the port city of Sabta. Thereafter, he gives money to some members of the family of the Banu Marine so that they can revolt, and there's a fitna, and he gives them weapons so that they can be busy with them, so that he can have his throne established. Then the year 709 of the Hijri calendar, we lost Jabal Tariq. We lost that area that's between Spain and Andalus, that's known as Jabal Tariq. Right now they call it how do you pronounce it? Gibraltar, that one. It's under England, I believe now. It's a part of England, but it was part of Spain before that. So we lost Jabal Tariq in the year 709 of the Hijri calendar, and this was a very difficult thing. Losing Jabal Tariq breaks any form of assistance. There's no way Muslims in Andalus are going to be saved. They have been left to the eventual doom. But the surprising thing is Islam remained in this land for almost 200 years. From the year 709 to the year 897, for about 189 years, they remained in this land. Why? What happened? What happened is that the king of Castile and the kingdom of Aragon, they had problems. The kingdom of Aragon is Barcelona, and the kingdom of Castile is the one that's owning most of the land in Spain. So they had a very big disagreement, and they started having civil wars amongst themselves, and they didn't bother with these Muslims. These Muslims are worth nothing to us. They're going to pay for us the taxes. They're going to do whatever they want. Then tomorrow we're going to discuss, inshallah, a marriage occurred. One of the most evil marriages, or one of the most disastrous marriages in our history. A marriage between the king of Aragon and the queen of Castile, and these two kingdoms became one, and the first target they chose was the Muslims. This is what we're going to look at in our forthcoming lecture, that we're going to talk about the fall of Granada, the last area of Muslim Spain, the last bastion of Muslim Spain. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.